So use extra, extra virgin olive oil. It's 100% pure, like me.
They dug it up, yanked it out of the air, and pretended it had never happened. One Married with Children episode was too much, even for a show that got away with so much. For 40 years, it remained secret, never aired, never published. Now it's back. What was so over the line that it couldn't be aired in the 1990s? Why did it push a boundary that even the network wouldn't allow? This was the missing episode that they attempted to remove, one that pushed the boundaries of television at the time and continues to raise eyebrows now. This is what they didn't want you to watch. The sitcom that broke all rules during the late 1980s. American television was controlled by sanitized family comedies. Series such as Full House, The Cosby Show, and Family Ties drew images of warm, functioning families struggling with small issues that were tidily wrapped up in 22 minutes. It was a formula people grew accustomed to, but it was also one that many were starting to get weary of. Come Married with Children, a sublime on-purpose show that broke not just the mold but incinerated it, danced on its smoldering remains, and offered up viewers something they'd never experienced. When it debuted in 1987 on then upstart Fox, Married with Children turned the American sitcom on its ear. Al Bundy wasn't a sensitive father desperate to connect with his children. He was a resentful shoe salesman who despised his work, disliked his marriage, and dreamed constantly of the one he never had. Peg wasn't the clinging housewife. She was a chain TV watching compulsive who cooked occasionally, cleaned never, and loved to shop. Their children, Kelly and Bud, weren't cute troublemakers. They were selfish, manipulative, and boastfully idle. And that was precisely the point. From the very beginning episode, Married with Children aired the unambiguous message. This is not an idealized family show, but one of dysfunction and disillusionment, and the kind of hard-hitting honesty into which no one had ever dared to go before in primetime comedy. No soft piano music moments, no moral messages at the end. Nothing but fat jokes, dirty jokes, poverty jokes, an unflinching tone that challenged people to laugh at what polite society was pretending not to notice. There were a million laughs. The show was a cultural phenomenon overnight. It was the voice of cynical, working-class humor that for many Americans felt almost tangible. Al Bundy's rants about miserable customers and his one-minute fame in high school football resonated. Peg unwilling to be the obedient housewife that she should be tasted like insurrection disguised. Bud's mischievous one-liners and Kelly's naive naivete are exaggerated, but uncomfortably plausible. And that, their strongest asset, teased everyone, men, women, children, neighbors, and particularly themselves, made the entire program interesting. But that same cutting edge, which propelled Married with Children to become one of the most coveted television programs, is the same cutting edge that propelled it to be the most reviled television show. Critics panned it as crude and irresponsible. Religious groups picketed it for its content. Politicians invoked it as an exemplar of cultural decay. Network censors? They were always on high lookout. Scripts were frequently flagged. Jokes were retyped. SEQ cut. Nevertheless, each and every week, Married with Children tested the boundaries. But a censor, a quiet guide, was secretly planted inside the show, a forbidden guilt line protected by turbulence backstage. They could make innuendos about getting it on, and even filthy hints. However, if a plot got too real, too raw, or too painful, it would absolutely risk being squashed completely. The backlash that broke out when the script leaked wasn't so much about jokes. It was about what the episode revealed. The episode they wouldn't air the episode was titled, I'll See You in Court. It was produced in its entirety during the third season of Married with Children and ready to air in 1989. Cast and crew had no idea it would be unlike any other outrageous addition to the series. It adhered to the familiar format. A bit of hooking up, a bit of scandal, some outrageously inappropriate one-liners, and lots of Bundy disgruntlement. But on this occasion, something shifted the balance, and when the episode eventually reached Fox executives, alarm bells began ringing straight away. On paper, the plot looked like a standard Bundy misadventure. Al and Peg opt to spice up their lackluster love life by staying at a sleazy motel for a romantic getaway. What they do not realize is the motel has a hidden agenda. It secretly tapes visitors using undercover cameras. They later find the videotape of their evening together has been watched and perhaps passed around without their permission. In a move straight out of the Bundy playbook, they choose to sue the motel. But rather than justice, they discover further humiliation when they are told they are not alone. Their neighbors, the Rhodes, had visited the same motel and been taped as well. This is another courtroom melodrama, with testimonies so graphic that they move into crude misunderstanding and jokes so painful that even die-hard fans of Married with Children will cringe. The program works the string of intimate privacy and exploitation, but doesn't keep its face straight regarding it. It's all just slapstick after that. But this one came awfully close to crossing the line for the era. The topic of being videotaped surreptitiously while having sex was not only voyeuristic, it was riddled with legal and ethical problems. Long ago, before viral leaks and social media, when each hotel would have signs declaring surveillance, the storyline resonated. Consent, voyeurism, and public nudity were themes that were rarely discussed in the world of TV sitcoms. This was unique. Even in a sitcom where Peg would make jokes about cutting Al off on a regular basis, the husband always belittled his clients. Fox was only a few years old as a network at the time, still struggling to fight its way into the fraternity of more established broadcasters. It based its image on an edgy, countercultural vibe, but at the same time, it relied heavily on ad revenue. And this little bit was a landmine. Internal memorandums report that several ad buyers were queasy about the content. Advertising alongside the jokes about the illegal private videos just seemed too dangerous. Not that the network needed to take any risks at the time. This did seem very much like an episode that has been graveyard. No announcement, no statement. It just disappeared. It never made it to U.S. air, and not for over a decade was it ever packaged in syndication, a home vid release, or a streaming schedule. All along, rumors abounded. Fans who'd heard of the lost episode couldn't find it anywhere. Some believed it was never finished. Others thought it had been destroyed altogether. But the truth was that the episode was over. It simply disappears. And whereas the humor might seem mild by today's measurement, the transgressive, in 1989, wasn't merely on the edge, it was perilous. Not because it promoted indecency, but because it toyed with something too close to actual world angst. Being recorded with permission, exposing your personal life, giving up control of your own privacy. What frightened the network wasn't what was on, but what might have been if they aired it. In 1989, Married with Children had become a battleground, and not just for TV critics, but for moral crusaders, watchdog organizations, and irate viewers who perceived it as a sign of America's deteriorating culture. The show's frank sex talk, raw humor, and unabashed cynicism were already on the edges, but an outraged letter from one viewer would fuel a full-blown public crusade that ultimately contributed to the defeat of the episode, I'll See You in Court. Her name was Terry Ricalta, a Michigan homemaker with 4 children whose kids were channel surfing when they came across an episode. The show in question wasn't even an I'll See You in Court. It was another episode with a Bundy's standard cocktail of sexy jokes and irreverent repartee. But what Ricalta witnessed appalled her. She felt that the show was eroding traditional family values, trivializing immorality, and corrupting young minds. She didn't merely flip the channel. She went to war. Ricalta started a grassroots boycott movement by mailing letters to Married with Children sponsors at Fox, asking them to pull ads from the show. Amazingly, it worked. Some of the biggest corporations, including Kellogg's and Coca-Cola, pulled the show's ad because of her campaign. The furor soon reached the headlines nationwide. TV news shows covered her crusade, and conservative pundits even praised her for it. What had begun as private indignation became a cultural crusade, and not just at Married with Children, but at the very essence of what television might now be permitted to be. Fox found itself suddenly on the defensive. The network had been marketed as bold, new, and subversive since it was still competing with ABC, NBC, and CBS Fox also needed to convince advertisers that it wasn't simply noise. It was marketable noise. A significant scandal depicting this news as more filthmongers is simply bad business for the network. Executives were in full panic mode. Along comes I'll See You in Court, with the show's premise revolving around a pair secretly taped making love, and that is the last thing they want to be holding on to. Irony is a good term. Married with Children had already seen into its third season and had around a whole bunch of previous episodes that could make it qualify as genuinely raunchy. Al cracked some excellent jokes regarding necrophilia. Peg openly discussed sexual fantasies of hers. Kelly had been typecast as the quintessential dumb blonde and had even constructed entire episodes out of sexual objectification of her at times. But somehow, this particular moment in the year 1989, the fallout from public outcry, moral panic, and a rather delicate issue, managed to land differently. I'll See You in Court was slated to air during this same time period. The show already had been taped and was inserted into the schedule prior to Ricolta's boycott. Suddenly, all that cool risk was being reconsidered. No longer was it whether or not it would be humorous. Instead, it was, are we going to get sued for this? Or will that cause another sponsor to bail? The legal ambiguity of the plot, unconsented filming, sexual content, courtroom repercussions, was sufficient to cause Fox to get edgy. Quietly, they removed the episode from the lineup. Threatening advertisers and public outrage on the rise, Fox took a stealthy yet calculated action: bury the episode. Behind studio walls, I'll See You in Court was another episode on the production list. The actors rehearsed it. The director staged it. The crew lit the motel scenes, shot courtroom gags, and wrapped up the shoot like usual. It was just another day on one of the most outlandish sets on television to them. But behind the chuckles, no one knew that they had just finished the most contentious and soon-to-be buried episode of Married with Children. In later interviews, the cast would reflect on the episode with a mix of confusion, amusement, and disbelief. Ed O'Neill, who played Al Bundy, once said he couldn't understand why this episode was the one that got pulled. After all, he delivered monologues about women's hygiene, insulted overweight customers to their faces, and repeatedly compared his intimate life to punishment. Yet none of those moments ever caused the network to flinch. Al Bundy was hardly a genius in Peg Bundy. Katie Sagal had found the script amusing and wry. She said that the motel plot was entirely in line with the show's raunchy, cringe-making, over-the-top but not actually mean, laugh-out-loud plot lines. To her mind, the notion of Al and Peg stumbling into star performers in an illegal private video was laughably silly. She believed this captured everything that their marriage represented. It was definitely not steamy nor glamorous. More so, it was ridiculous, humiliating, and awkward, the meat and potatoes of the show. The writers of the episode were reportedly stunned that it got censors' cuts. Later, in the DVD commentary, the series co-creator Michael G. Moy documented how the episode went through the standard pre-production clearances without warnings or initial red flags. It had only been the Terry Ricolta pressure campaign and the rising advertiser insecurity that had caused Fox to genuinely think twice. Now each script under review that featured the executive department continued to become a legal battle. I'll See You in Court was made a target, not for quality, but essentially because it was a legal risk veneered over in nasty jokes. Some of the cast members even joked that the episode is a kind of Bundy Bermuda